Seconds away on Studio 5.
Start spreading the news.
We're in New York City for a life-saving lesson from a kindergarten teacher turned stand-up comedian.
Right now, my number one fear in living in New York City is standing on a subway platform and an unidentified liquid dripping on my lip.
Plus,
and now to be in New York as a giant. I had to overcome many giants to now actually become a giant.
an eye-opening conversation with Giants running back Rashad Jennings.
If I can recognize distractions, it's a good thing. I only can recognize them when I'm headed in the right direction.
And then the poetic words,
I feel the blues are coming. I wonder what the blues will bring.
Of a Harlem literary legend come to life in a special way in Studio 5, starting now. And welcome to Studio 5, coming to you this week from New York City. You are sure to laugh, smile, and possibly even cry a few tears of joy in this episode. So let's not waste a minute. Let's get right to your top 5 from Studio 5. At number 5, Hillsong United wrapped its U.S. tour and is on to Israel. In between, this long-awaited award-winning snapshot. The Australian band was honored with its first American Music Award in the Contemporary Inspirational category.
My heart beating, my soul breathing.
The band has been nominated 3 years in a row. By the way, this video is the band's visual album, filmed across Israel earlier in the year, titled Of Dirt and Grace, Live from the Land.
My heart beating, my soul breathing. I found my life when I laid it down.
At number 4,
Mary, did you know that your baby boy would one day walk on water?
actor Joaquin Phoenix is playing the role of Jesus in the upcoming biopic Mary Magdalene, and the UK's Daily Mail has released these images from the set. Phoenix stars opposite Rooney Mara, who plays the title role. The movie is due out sometime in 2017. A sneak peek at the resurrection of Gavin Stone is this week's number 3.
You kill the lights, okay? You drop a single spot on me.
I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end of all things.
Gavin Stone is a washed-up actor who pretends to be a Christian to play the role of Jesus in a church production.
That is actually the exact opposite of what Jesus was about. He wasn't an attention seeker.
Really? I mean, why not?
This clean comedy hits theaters January 20th. And now to number 2.
And I will name you Kizzy.
The remake of the Emmy-nominated 1977 landmark miniseries Roots is now available to binge-watch on Hulu. The powerful slave story is based on the Alex Haley novel and starred LeVar Burton in the original series. Many people would wonder, why do Roots again in light of how well it was received and how well you did?
If we were going to make this very important American story, have resonance for this new generation of Americans, then we needed to retell it.
And at number 1.
Our Lord said to them, "Go ye into the whole world and preach the gospel to every living creature."
A look at Martin Scorsese's film Silence.
Herrera is lost to us. He renounced God in public and surrendered the faith. That's not possible. Father Ferreira risked his life to spread our faith all over Japan.
It seems to me that our mission here is more urgent than ever. We must go find Father Ferreira.
Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver play two 17th century Jesuit priests who face violence and persecution when they travel to Japan to locate their mentor.
The price for your glory is their suffering.
This film is an epic adaptation of the 1966 novel. And those are your top 5 from Studio 5 for this week, coming to you from New York City. Proud to say I grew up in the shadow of the Big Apple across the Hudson River in Jersey City, New Jersey, where I learned a life-saving lesson. In fact, it's a lesson that if many people don't learn, it could put them on the pathway to prison. Good news is there is a comedian right here in New York City who's helping to teach people that lesson in a surprising place. There is no city bigger or busier than New York, even on a rainy day. This hustle and bustle is enough to intimidate anyone.
Right now, my #1 fear in living in New York City is standing on a subway platform and an unidentified liquid dripping on my lip. That bloop, that's what keeps me up at night.
Meet Alvin Irby. He traded his small town for the bright lights of the big city and a shot at a career as a stand-up comedian.
After coming to New York, Googling myself, finding out there's another Alvin Irby, I was like, this dude can't be funnier than me. And so I was like, I need to go out and show the world who the real Alvin Irby is.
I look at you and hear you, and I keep hearing and thinking about Richard Pryor.
Every time I perform, and now that you mention it, I feel like it's gonna probably try and come out even more. But every time I perform, people tell me, oh, you sound just like Richard Pryor. Like, oh my goodness, is he your dad? I'm like, no, no, my mom is not that adventurous.
I grew up in one of America's most dangerous cities. Y'all know what city I'm talking about. Give it to me. Little Rock, Arkansas, that's right. That's where I'm from.
Long days for you. Right now, it's about what time? It's
11.
It's 11 p.m. We are in Hoboken in a theater after you were number 8, next to last, in a comedy competition. How often are you doing these kinds of things?
I mean, a few times a week. I have some really, really late nights. I do have early meetings sometimes, but not as early as when I was teaching kindergarten. I would come into the classroom and some of my students would be using the college words I taught them against me, right? So I'm in the classroom and yawns, they're one of the most contagious things on the planet. So imagine I have a classroom, right, full of students, they're all sitting on the rug and I yawn, all of a sudden the whole class is like, right? And then one of the students says to me, Mr. Irby, you look lethargic. I'm like, little girl, don't be focused on my countenance. You need to focus on your reading.
You were a kindergarten teacher for a while.
Yeah, I taught kindergarten. I taught first grade. I also taught, I was assistant teacher in a 4th grade class, yeah.
So you were doing comedy and teaching at the same time?
Yep, at the same time. Yeah, I would go and tell jokes. I would teach by day, tell jokes by night. That was what I was doing.
Alvin isn't in school these days, but he is still teaching in multiple classrooms. That brings us to Harlem, where Alvin's bright idea unites boys, books, and barbershops.
You taught for how long?
I taught for 4 years.
Did you see confidence missing in kids at any of those places?
I mean, definitely. I remember a kid, brilliant kid, named Deshaun. I remember one day I walked up to him, right, during math. I'm like, Deshaun, you're a great mathematician. He looked at me and said, I'm not a mathematician, I'm a math genius. I said, okay, Deshaun, okay, all right. Yep, you are, right? But the same kid, during reading, told me, Mr. Irby, I can't read and I'm never gonna learn to read. Same kid. And I taught him how to read, but there are like millions of Deshaun's out there who are convinced that reading isn't for them. And that's really part of what drove me to start Barbershop Books, because I believe that something could be done.
The rest of Alvin Irby's story is still ahead. Plus,
every day I gotta be able to look in the mirror and say that's the guy that I'm trying to become.
sitting down with a New York giant who faced giants.
I was hospitalized. I was close to my deathbed because of asthma.
Alvin Irby traded the classroom for the comedy stage, but his caring heart wouldn't let children in need be left behind. And that's where the Barbershop Books story continues. With Barbershop Books, Alvin builds reading spaces for barbershops. He then fills those spaces with reading options kids will enjoy, with a little encouragement from their barbers as they wait to get a haircut. Okay. Alvin calls the waiting time expensive reading real estate.
Based on my experience as a teacher, I had some theories, right? One was that, you know, a lot of young boys of color, a lot of young black boys don't identify as readers, right? Okay. So if you ask them, are you a reader? Do you like to read? They would say no. And then also, you know, I had a theory that a lot of boys don't associate books and reading with being black. And that's problematic because if you don't identify as a reader, well, you're much less likely to read for fun. And reading for fun or pleasure reading is absolutely crucial for closing the reading achievement gap.
Here are some sobering numbers to think about. 1 out of every 4 children in America grow up without ever learning to read. Nearly 85% of those facing trial in juvenile court are functionally illiterate. And more than 60% of all prison inmates are illiterate.
So we have boys, we have books, and barbershops. What made you decide that the barbershop was the place to do this?
Considering those theories that I just talked about, right, that I think a lot of black boys don't associate books with being black and things like that, I think that one of the reasons why that's the case is because a lot of young black boys don't have relevant reading models. They don't have black men that they see in their lives who are reading or that are encouraging them to read.
Denny Moe's Superstar Barbershop here in Harlem was the first to open its doors to Alvin's idea.
Before the books came in here, they used to try to tear up the shop.
Being the first is a point of pride for the shop owner, who sacrificed a little profit to make room for it.
I had video games back there, took them out, put the chess table up, put the books back there. You want to, you know, give the kids to exercise their mind, you know what I mean? And what better way to do it than reading a book?
Fig's Barbershop, just up the street, signed on as well. You read 2 books today.
Yes.
Of those 2 books, which one was your favorite?
Lego Ninjago.
And I think what Alvin is doing is amazing for the community. It really is. It really shows that, you know, people still do care out there.
Literacy is very important. And with all the game systems and no one really reading and writing anymore, everything is in the computer, it's essential that they learn to read, learn new words, and understand what they're reading at the same time.
Well-groomed, well-read is the Barbershop Books slogan.
Part of what Barbershop Books is trying to challenge is kind of negative attitudes or perceptions about books and reading. And so anything that I see that's positive and that involves kids interacting and parents interacting with books in the barbershop, that makes me really happy and it lets me know, you know what? It's doing what it was created to do.
It's being done in at least 9 barbershops and counting. I wanted to see Barbershop Book headquarters, so this is it?
This is Barbershop Books headquarters, AKA my living room.
This is a one-man operation with a growing reach.
So Barbershop Books is continuing to expand.
Yeah, you know, I really see Barbershop Books as being a national program. You know, right now we're only in New York City and primarily just in Harlem, but I definitely know that there are barbershops all across the United States, you know, that could utilize this program. I've received requests from as far as Anchorage, Alaska, Detroit, Chicago, Newark, Baltimore, St. Louis, LA, I mean, Texas, Houston, I mean, all over, people have reached out wanting to bring barbershop books, but as you can see, I mean,
this is
barbershop books.
Funny thing, barbershop books comes from the heart of a kid from Little Rock, whose single mother, a teacher, forced him to read as a child. And while he never saw himself as an educator, his high school principal predicted it.
We're both in line. He turns and he says to me, Alvin, you're gonna be a better principal than I ever was. And I looked him directly in his eyes and said, never, I will never go into education. Never, never. And I said it with such, I just was so confident with it, right? And here I am, you know, I mean, this is what my life's work is. I am the chief reading inspirer. So I'm out here working hard to inspire the next generation of readers.
Barbershop Books continues to expand right here in New York City and in other cities across the country. And it's getting some support from professional athletes as well. Still ahead on Studio 5.
Rashad means a wise counselor.
We're getting some wise counsel from the New York Giant who rose above giants to play the game.
When my father had his legs amputated, I couldn't do nothing but cry. Couldn't even fathom not having legs. Doing what I do for a living as a running back.
At the heart of football season here in New York City, all eyes are on the New York Giants, and a standout on the team is running back Rashad Jennings. As fans follow him, he stops by Studio 5 to tell us who he's following.
So I'm curious about a lot of things in life. Being in New York City, I'm just like a kid and getting to know the minds of some of the people who are responsible for the things we see daily. He's been preparing me everywhere he's taken me. And now to be in New York as a Giant. I had to overcome many giants to now actually become a Giant. And so I'm thrilled, I'm humble, I'm excited that God wanted me in New York for whatever reason, but I definitely see his hand on my life. Distractions help me grow. You're either gonna be distracted or you're gonna distract somebody. If I can recognize distractions, it's a good thing. I only can recognize them when I'm headed in the right direction. I try my hardest to live from the reference of scriptures and let that be my, mirror. Every day I gotta be able to look in the mirror and say that's the guy that I'm trying to become. And I always tell people it's nothing special about me, I'm in a special position. I was hospitalized, I was close to my deathbed because of asthma. Barely could breathe. The doctors told me that I'd never be able to play sports. I cried, and that was a tough moment in my life. Through prayer and determination, I woke up one day and said I'm gonna run and get in shape to the point where I can outrun asthma. Rashad means a wise counselor. I think we all, at some point in life, find our shoes being inside a counselor. It's just whether we're aware or taking ownership over it. When my father had his legs amputated, I couldn't do nothing but cry. Couldn't even fathom not having legs. Doing what I do for a living as a running back, it would be impossible. Every time I see my father, I see a picture of him, I'm always reminded that I have them, and so I must run. In life, I'm always going to be running because of the things I had to overcome. I was the short, fat, dorky kid with glasses and asthma. I rode the bench. I didn't have anything looking up. Like, I really did not play. So they absolutely had nobody else to turn to. And I remember the coach yelling, Rashad, get in the game, get in the game. Go in, first play, first carry, 30-yard touchdown. 14 plays, and I scored 4 touchdowns, 2 on offense, 2 on defense. And at the end of the game, that Tennessee scout who came to watch the starting tailback, he pulled me aside and said, Rashad, I couldn't help but to notice you, but you got potential. When opportunity presents itself, it's too late to prepare for it because that opportunity is in that moment. We will never be 100% excellence, but there are moments in our life we can exercise being excellence, and that's only because of the love of Christ. And I have to be perfect, and I have to, and then the measure of it and what it looks like. The perfection was lying in grace for us to fall in mercy and understand who Christ is. He was so convicted in his faith that he made everybody else question theirs. He's a man of love. He exemplifies it, and he's somebody that I want to follow.
Jennings is a man with a good heart who makes headlines for doing good on the field and off, including surprising his mother with a new home. Still ahead, here on Studio 5.
Down on Lenox Avenue the other night, by the pale, dull pallor of a one-bulb light.
The New York-inspired poetry of Langston Hughes, like you've never heard before. And welcome back to Studio 5, New York City edition. Let's take a look ahead to what we're working on for next week.
My financial success comes from my musical talent. I've been poor, now I'm rich. Believe me, rich is better.
Bravo reality TV star Ben Tankard is in Studio 5, talking faith, family, and the full tank life. Many people watch Thicker Than Water and see your life. Pilot, gorgeous family, beautiful home, and they see the success, would be surprised that it wasn't always like that.
My wife now, she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Me, it was a plastic spoon, and it had been used 2 or 3 times before. Oh, wow. So.
That's just one story from next week's rundown. You know, we've talked a lot about literacy in this edition of Studio 5, so I'm giving the final word to the work of the late Harlem Renaissance writer and poet, Langston Hughes.
What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?
Or fester like a sore, and then rot? Does it stink like a rotten piece of meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet?
Maybe it just sags like a heavy load.
Or does it explode?
Langston uses wisdom from the voice of children. That's going to do it for this edition of Studio 5. Until next time, reach out and touch me at Ephraim Graham on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye.